What's up, guys? Farooqi Bros here. This is podcast number 23, and today we're going to be doing a quick pod, just talking and reacting to some of the quotes that came out of the Snyder Cut event that a lot of people are simply misconstruing and misunderstanding. But for our listeners who weren't there, who haven't had a chance to listen to the stream, I'll play you guys a quick 1-minute clip of what Zack said.
Says to me like, "Oh, like Batman killed a guy." I'm like, "Fuck." Really? Like, I'm like, wake the fuck up. It's like,
Yes.
it's like,
Yes.
That's all. So like, I guess that's what I'm saying about once you've lost your virginity to this fucking movie, and then you come and say to me something about oh, my superhero wouldn't do that. I'm like, are you serious? I'm down the fucking road on that. You know what I mean? So, and it's a cool point of view. Look, I'm 100% fine with it. It's a cool point of view to be like, my heroes are still innocent. My heroes didn't fucking, lie to America. My heroes didn't, embezzle money from their corp. My heroes didn't fucking commit any atrocities. I'm like, that's cool, but you're living in a fucking dream world, okay? So, and I guess, so the cool thing is so mythologically speaking, I'm 100% fine. And by the way, and I love more than anything, Superman and Batman, but in the same way that Alan Moore was fed up with the fucking okay, no, they do this. Clearly, this is a response to where Watchmen talks about comic books in the same way that this movie talks about comic book movies, but it talked about comic books at their most. They were broken, So he was just addressing that. The thing with comic book movies is, and I'm a fan. I go and see them, and I love them, and I don't have.
So,
A lot to digest.
there's a lot in there. There's a lot was said, but and you guys can kind of give me your raw reactions, and I think I can start it off if you guys want, and kind of give you what I think. And I think the first word that's important here is the word context. And you have to remember that he said this during the Watchmen screening, which was last Saturday. And the question, and actually what the Q&A was leaning towards, was that Watchmen is such a story about deconstruction, about superheroes and what superheroes mean, that he made this comment that, when you compare Watchmen to Batman v Superman, or even Man of Steel, or even any comic movie, it's not really a comparison, because Watchmen is 10 times darker and has a different kind of layer of themes, which is why notions of, what can superheroes kill or not, come into that. So it has a different kind of layer of themes, which is why notions of, what can superheroes kill or not, come into that. And basically, when you look at these kind of things, you have to see basically Zack's point of view. And I think Zack said this in multiple interviews and even throughout the weekend, that he really cares about the why of superheroes, and he cares about what makes superheroes tick. So he's not trying to break or change the characters, and that's evident in kind of the arc he's putting out. If when Superman killed Zod, it was considered that, wow, this is a taboo thing for people who just grew up with Christopher Reeve movies, even though Christopher Reeve's Superman killed as well. But even though the comics is also killed, but it showed that people were surprised by it, even though that same scene, Superman is basically crying after he does it. The show is that that's the wrong way, and he's learning his way up. And with Batman, it's the opposite. Batman already had his peak, and you catch him when he's already on his down spiral. So when Batman's killing, once again, every single Batman is killed. But the reason why this one gets more of a backlash is because there's actually a story around it, where Batman killing is part of the story, because Zack is trying to deconstruct him and trying to figure out the why of Batman. That if Batman did somehow become a killer, what does that mean? And does the character inertly change? And that's kind of what he showed. So when he's saying things like you're living in a dream world, he's saying that in the context of Watchmen. That's what most of you guys aren't getting. I think a lot of people on Twitter and people who are in the blogger sphere, they think that Zack is talking about Batman v Superman, but really what he's talking about is Watchmen. And Watchmen's a very interesting movie. You see, the thing about Watchmen is that it's very much a product of Alan Moore. And once again, you heard the clip that I just played. Alan Moore had a very specific vision for Watchmen, and it was a commentary for the comic books at the time. So, honestly, look at the time Watchmen came out. Look at the era of comic books that are happening. And Zack makes a point that there was a level of stagnation and there's a level of uniformity where a lot of the comics became more of the same. And what Alan Moore wanted to try is that let's take a character like Superman, like Batman, and let's just completely flip them on their head, which is what Watchmen comes from, right? And Watchmen is not just a social commentary, a political commentary. It's a commentary on the comic book medium, the comic book genre, the comic book audience, and it's all about the innocence of superheroes, right? And that's why, once again, I keep stressing this. Zack's comment were from the Watchmen panel talking about Watchmen as a film and then putting the layer of Superman and Batman on top. So he's not, I know you fanboys are really going into it, but he's not coming for your superheroes. He's not going after Batman. He said literally, and I'm going to play this clip later on in the podcast, he said he loves the Avengers movies. He's into all those stuff, but he wants to just try a different way. And he, in the spirit of Alan Moore, he wants to kind of look at comic book movies in a different light, and that's where Man of Steel and Batman v Superman comes from. And that's not to say that those two movies are in the vein of Watchmen, because they're not. And whereas Watchmen is about the kind of the lack of innocence of the superhero, Man of Steel and Batman v Superman is the redemption of a superhero and the growth of a superhero, right? So, and then people take a few lines here and there, but the lines I took really were that, I mean, Zack literally said that the immigrant angle, it was there for Superman. Like, that's the good stuff. But people are concentrating and cherry picking 2-3 lines, and they cherry pick the you're living in a dream world, and if you don't think Batman kills and XYZ, and again, put it in context, put in what's going on, and it's very clear what he's saying. And now, I'm not debating the philosophy of Batman with you guys, but I think even Zack would agree that Batman, yes, generally does not kill, which is why the arc of Batman v Superman was him learning not to kill at the end and going back to his original ways. Remember, they wouldn't put the line of Alfred saying new rules, and the cops wouldn't be surprised saying, oh my god, he branded him, if that's what Batman always was. The whole idea was that it just happened. It's a relatively new thing as he felt more powerless. So, again, if that wasn't the case, then Batman would be killing all the time. But he wasn't, and he wasn't killing in Batman v Superman either. So that's pretty much kind of the point I wanted to make to you guys. But from there, I'll just pass it over to the round table and see what Zayyan has to say. What do you think? And stuff like that. So, Zayyan, you want to go?
Yeah, I guess I'll just jump in. I think a lot of the backlash is really overblown. I mean, I guess if you pull some of his words out of context, it might sound strange, but as a whole, I get what he's saying. And some of these bloggers are so, and even some of these so-called fans are so stuck with this one idea, one interpretation. They think that Batman can't kill, and that's wrong, and that never happened before. You know, clearly they haven't read the source material. I mean, this film is an Elseworld story. This is Zack's story, and in his film, Batman kills, and it's part of his arc, it's part of his journey, and it's actually explained. Unlike every other film, live-action film where Batman has killed, even when they shove it in your face that, oh, he has a no-killing rule, he still kills. But these bloggers, they're nowhere to be found. The second Zack does it and actually has a arc around this idea, and Batman's the villain of Batman v Superman. You're supposed to not like him, and his killing all feeds into that too. And they are living in a dream world in a sense, because these characters can be different. They can evolve. They can be in different, more serious stories, and it's not always the same Saturday morning kid version that everybody wants. And I think the bloggers are just blowing it out of proportion, and I think Zack's pretty much right on most of the things he's saying.
All right, Omer, go ahead.
When he was a part of it, like when he was at the helm. Even like he made certain decisions that he knew would make like the fans and the bloggers kind of talk about the movie after it's already come out. I mean, this movie came out what 2016, right?
Yeah.
It's been 3 years. So he succeeded in what he wanted to do, which was this is how he is. Every Zack Snyder movie happens to be one that people debate about, and then he makes certain decisions that if you don't use your brain while you're watching, it's harder for you to understand. And I feel like when these movies came out, people didn't use their brains when they were watching. Specifically, the people that wrote. I mean, they're crying about Batman killing. There's a video on YouTube where they show how many people Christian Bale kills, or Christian Bale's version of Batman. Which is something that Zack Snyder actually uses in the interviews. Like, he was using that as a ploy in the interviews, showing people that, yes, Batman kills. It's a part of the game. And when you do something as realistic as this, and specifically with the world that he was trying to create. Like, he was creating a world in which the superheroes are trying to become the ideal. They're not there yet. Like, they're not, the ideal to strive towards. They're not that yet. They have to become that. And one of the things I think he wanted to do was to keep them flawed so that you can actually take. Because if they're not flawed, like Christopher Reeve Superman's, like at least personally speaking, I don't take nothing from him because he's too like perfect. You know what I mean? Superman is a character you have to make him interesting. Like he's a character and I think that's what his main goal was. Now, when you make decisions like that, specifically when pop culture has interpreted the characters as goody two shoes for the past 20 years, when you do make films that have them deconstructed and broken, then yes, you receive some backlash. And I don't think he gives a crap. That's the thing.
I don't think he does either.
That's what you get out of the quotes. He doesn't care.
And actually, I got one more quote before I pass it off to Samir, just to kind of hone the point home. Here's a quote of him talking about like the Avengers.
The thing with comic book movies is, and I'm a fan. Like, I go and see them, and I love them. And I don't have I go and see all the Avengers movies, and I go and I enjoy them, and I love it. It's not, you don't have to not enjoy them, but you also have to be like open to other things as well. You can't just be, anyway, that's
So, Samir, I think I'll pass it off to you now. Like, what do you think about things like that? Like, the idea of not being stuck on just one type of movie and being open. Like, what do you think about that?
I think you shouldn't really compare Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman and all those characters to the Watchmen characters. Frankly, these characters are much more popular. When Zach's answering the question, he's talking about comparing Batman and Superman to the Watchmen. But the Watchmen characters are much darker. These characters are much more popular. Doesn't want a movie that's as dark as that. So what I think is that I'm not complaining. Like, I don't personally dislike it, and people should be more open-minded. But that's why it's an R-rated movie. And so,
I just jumping off Samir's point, actually all three of your points. I agree, and I feel like one thing to understand is that first of all, Zach is now unfiltered. He's with Netflix now. Like Omer said, it's a different game. Like it's not like he's under some kind of a contract now with WB and like that. He's working with Netflix. He's working on Army of the Dead, and this event was very much kind of like for charity, as something to give back to the school and refurnish it, and the auditorium where he and Larry both went to school together. And obviously, this was a moment where all the fans and students, they all came to see Zach and to watch the movies with him. And the question was about Watchmen, and it was how Watchmen is very much different and has a different impact, and that's when Batman and Superman came up, and then what the Twitter sphere has gone crazy about, and what all like, oh, Snyder is saying, wake the F up, or whatever the case might be, right? if Batman doesn't kill. And that's the funny thing, because Zack didn't make Batman kill just for the sake of killing. And Omer said this before, that Christopher Nolan's Batman killed, and Tim Burton's Batman from the 90s killed. In fact, Tim Burton's Batman, Michael Keaton, he strapped dynamite to one of Penguin's thugs, and then he just tossed him into a manhole and he blew up. And he smiled while it was happening. So, and obviously, Batman Superman, he's doing killing too, but again, it's part of the arc, like Zayyan said, and it's part of the bigger picture. And it's part of what he was planning to do with Batman. And we'll probably cover what he was trying to do in a separate podcast, a separate video, but this one's really much talking about our reaction to kind of all the hatred we're seeing, because the last 2 days, it's felt like 2016. Like the amount of hatred that all critics and people are throwing out there again. So I think people gotta just calm down a little bit, look at things in context. You know, you guys hear but you don't listen. You know, so and you guys read but you don't understand. And I think that's something you gotta work on. You know, and I'm talking to actually my fellow contemporary critics. Some of them who have some problem with us. I think some of them think that we're starting some kind of hate campaign against them, even though
Hilarious.
Even though we are critics and bloggers and we're actually part of the same industry as you guys. And just because we like Zack Snyder's work doesn't mean we're trying to destroy your little world, your little MCU world, you know, and we're actually excited for Endgame too. So if the shoe, if you're listening and the shoe fits, then you know what I'm talking about. And if it doesn't, then I'm not talking to you. So and just I'm just letting you guys know. And I'm saying I take a lot of, as brothers and I, we take pride in what comic book debate is. And actually, we got to thank a couple of our writers and former writers who were attending it. And a lot of them brought up us to Zach. And Sydney and Brittany and Alina, they all brought up our names to Zach. And Zach said to us, not to us, but to them about us, that how much he respects comic book debate and how much he respects us as the Farooqi Bros and what we're trying to do. And he literally said that you guys are the unbiased, bloggers. You know, like, so he shouted us out. And then Joe, who's also a former writer, contributor for comic book debate, he also told Zach that he used to write for comic book debate. And Zach's first reaction was, "Yeah, I love all those guys." So on that note, you know, we know Zach's a listener to our podcast. He's into our site and reads our articles. So we got to thank you, Zach, also for a great, if you're listening, great weekend. And obviously, if you do a weekend one in New York City, we'll definitely be there. And obviously, there's always an open door invitation to our podcast as well. So any last words, guys? Omer, you got something to say?
Nope.
All right, Zayyan, there's something to say?
No, I guess that wraps it up. Well.
All right, Samir, anything you got to say while you're on vacation?
First of all, I already posted pictures of the airplane, so no.
All right, bet. So,
Samir, they don't know when we record this. We could have recorded this yesterday.
Either way, who cares? That's pretty much it, guys. I think the lesson of the story, I think I said it before, I'll repeat it again. If you're gonna hear something, actually try to listen to it. And don't take words out of context or cherry pick 6 words.
You know, it's hilarious because that was done to our podcast when we had Jay Oliva and Clay Enos on. Like,
That's
it's
true.
like a thing.
That's true. The second Clay came on our podcast, right away, cherry picked one word that Clay said out of 1 hour of podcast material and made him out to be some kind of like, bitter employee. And then we had to obviously put an article out to really show everyone kind of what we were trying to do with that podcast. And again, it's like people take Zack Snyder and anything around him and make it into this pariah. So unfortunately, people like Larry Fong and Jay Oliva, sorry Jay, for joining us, and they actually had to kind of deal with that also, that scrutiny. In fact, one blogger literally said that myself and Jay and Fiona are the ones who started a hate campaign, you know? A hate campaign.
Which hate campaign? Nobody knows.
Who do we hate? So, and hate campaign to generate money. How much money do we make from the Snyder Cut? Someone tell me what check Snyder gave me. So, either way, we're ranting again. But that's pretty much it, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this quick little discussion. We're going to be back for another one soon. I think we got another one. We're going to discuss very much one more time Zack Snyder's vision and what he was thinking for Justice League 1 and 2, especially the first Justice League 1 script. That's going to be next. And then right after that, you guys can expect a Shazam podcast talking about all 4 of our spoiler reactions to that. You can catch my Shazam review. It is up on Rotten Tomatoes and on Comic Book Debate, and there's a video version also on YouTube. So be sure to check that out. And and also give us a follow. So that's pretty much it. So from myself, from Zayyan, from Omer, and from Samir, this is the Farooqi Bros. We'll see you next time. Peace out.